This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Also that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Lowe's knows how to help make your home holiday ready for less. Get Select Style Selections vinyl flooring for just $1.99 per square foot and have it installed before the festivities begin. Our team can help you every step of the way. See a Lowe's Red Vest associate or visit Lowes.com/holiday install to get started. Lowe's, we help, you save. Basic install only. Date restrictions apply. Subject to availability. Installed by independent contractors. See associate for details. Contiguous U.S. only.
Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on. Hey, O'Shan. Let's go.
The Seattle Sounders have done it. MLS Cup winners.
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle.
The Sounders rule the region.
Seattle Sounders is campeón.
Vega! Ooch of a gooch! All creatures great and small! Vega! ¡No me pongo de pie! ¡De rodillas!
You know, what was the thought process in terms of who you decided to use and who you didn't?
Ever since Sounder at Heart wrote a commentary that we didn't take Gold Cup seriously.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes on the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. It is Friday. We are here at Long Acres in Renton. Joining me today, of course, Niko Moreno. And once again, Tim Foss. Niko and Tim, give it a little behind the screen. You guys were supposed to record last week. It didn't happen. Technical difficulties.
We gave it a real good shot. We had a really nice conversation, and I pushed 2 out of 4 wrong buttons and just didn't record anything but the sound of not having microphones plugged in.
Yeah, there you go. That's sometimes how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we cooked, first of all, for a pretty good chunk of time. And actually, I'm glad that I literally just found out that it didn't go out. So if you are on X and I referenced that while we learned this week, it wasn't out there. But
right.
You know, some people were asking. I could not add you at all on X either. I gotta figure out your ad because it is difficult. I tried Foss and Tim. And
it's because I'm not on anything but Blue Sky. I nuked all of my social media. Other than that, yeah.
Gotcha.
So you can't find me because I'm not there.
Got it. But I just put Tim Foss and I. But glad that now I know that it's all good. I'm just glad that we're back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Jo was also, taking his vacation.
I know.
Counting all his dollars.
Exactly. I was just like swimming around like Scrooge McDuck. But all right, so we're back here. It's been the highs of where we were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now have come down a little bit. The Sounders have dropped 2 results. They tied Galaxy, obviously. That's the painful one. Then they went to Miami. They lost that game. Not an entirely surprising result, but really because of the drop points to the Galaxy. I think that one looms a lot larger. But we go into this week. They have I wouldn't say a must win, but it is almost, if they want to finish 4th, this is almost literally a must win. but it's also they just kind of need a result here to get the vibes back. I mean, it seems funny to say the highs that we were at 3 weeks ago were so high, and it's not like they're all gone, but it is funny how a couple bad results do change the mood a lot.
I think not just the results, but particularly with that Miami game, it was easy to in advance have said like, yeah, that's probably going to be that's going to be an L. You take that and you move on. But I think the way that result happened, especially contrasted with how the Sounders played against Miami in Seattle, the disjointedness,
180-degree difference.
Yeah, just so completely different from how they've played really up until that Galaxy game.
I mean, for a few months, they did not have a performance. Like the Galaxy game, I think you could still see the vestiges of what we've been seeing for months, both the good and the bad. Like it wasn't like they'd been playing perfectly for the last few months, but they showed signs of how good they could be, and they didn't finish all their chances, but they created a ton of chances. And against Miami, it was just a totally different game.
I do think that there is a common denominator, as we asked Brian today. You know, I sat long and hard and watched both games a couple of times, and you know, I had a theory that perhaps the long break right after winning the Leagues Cup could have had something to do with it. But then I looked at the LA Galaxy game, and that wasn't necessarily the case. But the common denominator is just mental lapses and individual mistakes that, although extremely correctable, are frustrating. And they are detrimental for trying to get a result. And in the Miami game specifically, it was all about just communication. It was about not tracking back. It was about just way too many turnovers. I mean,
way too many
Christian
turnovers.
Roldan was uncharacteristically poor in that game. I mean, he was just not effective. He had so many bad turnovers. We can sit here and discuss that it's probably because of an exhaustion component, but he wasn't the only one. Yamar also didn't look particularly good.
Rothrock didn't look
Paul
good.
Rothrock didn't look
Kalani
good.
had maybe his worst game of the season.
Kalani's the guy that I wanted to focus on because both goals that to me are the biggest head scratchers are attributed to him. Maybe one is unfair because Kim Ki-hee is out of the field.
You're on the third goal you're talking about.
Because they're wrapping up his hand. But Kalani was so flat-footed on that defensive stance for that goal. And if he sees Frei coming, he's probably able to just body him. I know he doesn't have the height, but he definitely has the strength to back him up. But he just gets caught ball watching, and that's a goal. So I hope that this is a learning lesson, and he's had a couple of those, including the Galaxy game, because I also attribute that set piece a lot to Kalani and as Christian in that one. But this is what we thought. So I say that with a context of my thought process, saying that there's no reason to panic.
Yeah,
that's something that I saw a lot of in the comments. Right, we go from like we're gonna just rule MLS to like, man, we're awful. We need a striker. Right. So I think that there's a
we need a striker stuff is a little extra. I feel like, but I've heard that for sure recently.
It's just there's a middle ground there. So just to conclude and pass the ball here, I just think that this game, as you guys mentioned, was always going to be difficult. And I think that the reality where the panic stems of is of equalizing with, allowing LA to equalize with you, knowing that you should have won that game by a couple of goals probably.
Yeah.
And that's where it all comes off. But with these new younger players, as good as they are and as important as they have been, they're going to have those moments. And I think that those are the learning lessons to move forward.
One other element that I think you could see play out in different ways in both games, but in the goals that they gave up, where there is and Schmetzer has talked about it, you know, he talked about it after the Galaxy game of he was happy that players had this mentality of like going for that third goal.
Yeah.
But there is a failure to read the moment of if you kind of step on the ball a little bit and play for some possession, the Galaxy have to come out and chase, and that's going to open up more space for you to get that third goal. But the eagerness to go after that third goal, which some of that maybe comes from you are starting with guys who earlier in the season would have been depth players who are trying to prove that they deserve to stay on the field going forward. And you've brought in guys like Morris and Rusnák who want to reestablish themselves. And so they're pushing to try to get a goal. And that opens you up. Similarly against Miami, Schmetzer was talking today about one of those goals being a product of Kalani seeing that there's space, and so he pushes to take the space because Miami gives you the space. But that over-eagerness to get into attack, which maybe to some extent is fed by the last several months of being able to just run over teams. And once you get your footing and you get traction and you start going, teams just aren't stopping you. But that has to come with an understanding of the circumstances, and playing against Miami down a goal already is a very different setting than playing against Miami with a 1-goal lead at home.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I would think that those are things that, Jordan Morris after the game made a comment about how maybe we needed something like this to sort of reset our focus. And maybe there's something to that, especially because the last 5 games of the season are all against teams currently in playoff position. This is a tough walk into the Sounders are going to make the playoffs. I don't think that's really a question, but they can really finish anywhere realistically from 4th all the way down into 7th. Maybe, I don't think they're going to drop below 7th, but all those are very realistic scenarios. And so they're going to need to be sharp. They're going to need to get results from these games. And that's going to start this week against Austin, which is a team that's been playing a lot better recently and a lot better than the last time the Sounders played them, which wasn't that long ago, but it was sort of it was right at the start of this stretch, this post Club World Cup stretch. They were the first team the Sounders played coming out of the Club World Cup. Sounders won that game 2-0. But really since then, Austin has been much better. They're coming off a very emotional win against Minnesota in the U.S. Open Cup semifinals. So they're going to be hosting the U.S. Open Cup with a chance to win their first ever trophy. So this is a big, emotional week for them. And it'll be interesting to see how they come out of that. Are they flying because of this emotional high? Are they drained because they played 120 minutes on Wednesday, which is one less day of rest than the Sounders will have had? This is going to be a very interesting test to see where the Sounders are mentally as well as physically.
And I think it's all going to play out depending on the personnel on the field, in my opinion, because if there's anything that I've learned this week is that Pedro de la Vega is heavily missed.
Yes.
There is a huge need to have Pedro de la Vega for this system to be as effective and as elite as it has looked at times, right? There is what he does on the ball, off the ball, his ability to just make defenders stay honest because they know that he could hit you mid-range. He could just dribble right past you. There's so many things that he does. And as much as I think that Georgie had moments in the Miami game, you could see that there's an obvious downgrade when it comes to that final product in front of goal, right? And that's not an indictment towards Georgie. He's still learning. He continues to get better. He continues to show us what he has. But Pedro is very important for a team that doesn't necessarily have a guy that at the 9 is going to just take over a game. It is the wing play that's going to allow your team to get forward and get a lot of goals. In this particular game against Miami, I thought the transition was non-existent. It was almost frustrating at times the way that sometimes Obed was yelling at players to just space out. They were so compact. They were just so put together. There was no extra runs being made. So I think that against Austin, the personnel will change. I think having Alex Roldan is going to help out a lot of those transition moments because he's a guy that gets forward very easily. That he's also one of the guys that sees the field so much better. That goal against the LA Galaxy, the first one, is a phenomenal ball from Alex Roldan, right? And then is Danimsovsky with his savviness, checks his hip, drops it to Ferreira. All those things will get better against Austin. But if there's something that I want to see is how quickly can Albert slide in and continue to play, because he did okay in the time he was in. He obviously puts that great. He slips Jordan through for the one goal the Sounders got,
and he also helped set up the other really good chance where he put Georgie in, and Georgie crossed it to Osaze, who put it off the post.
Yeah, so I feel like that's what ultimately is going to make or break this game for the Sounders on Sunday. I'm not worried about the lineup for Austin. I'm really not. I think that even at their best, I would put a great performance by the Sounders to go out there and win that game. But it is about how certain pieces kind of get put together, because we still don't know if Pedro will start or not. I mean, Brian talked about it. He said it's a pain tolerance thing. It's a tricky situation, tricky injury. So that just doesn't sit well with me. I'm hoping that he is available. He said he's making the trip, but that could mean all kinds of things. Pedro made the trip to Miami too. Yeah. So in Brian-ish terms, it just I feel very uneasy about Pedro right now.
I think the obvious difference for this game versus the last two with Pedro is that going into the Galaxy game, the 2 days prior, he wasn't all in with the team doing drills and scrimmages. Today, he was all in from start to finish,
and was very sharp.
Yeah,
it should be said. It was a reminder.
Yeah.
He was cooking.
I don't know how we've kind of stopped talking about this because it was a thing for so long because people were not seeing the production on the field, but you would see days like today from Pedro out at training pretty regularly back before he was really he'd started scoring and playing well in the actual games. But he was on fire today. Almost every time the ball got on his foot, it was either in the back of the net, either through him or an assist. It was quite remarkable, and it was a good reminder of this guy is really good. And it's funny to say that he is a unsung hero because he is a designated player. He was named player of the tournament at Leagues Cup. But yet, because he hasn't been playing 90 minutes, I do think there's a way of sort of underestimating what he can bring in the time that he is on the field. And I think you're right. He was very sorely missed against Miami, especially. And I mean, he was probably missed against the Galaxy as well. But he is a special player. And even if he doesn't start this week, just the fact that he is at least in full training seems to be a good sign.
I mean, another unsung hero that I feel like people have forgotten about, and I think we could definitely title him that, to me, is Jordan Morris. And he is a guy that he got a lot of heat on the socials on this game. Look, I get that he wasn't like speeding or like just sprinting to every ball, and he comes in late into a game that's ultimately done and over with, right? And regardless of the Sounders getting the one goal, it just didn't look like the other one was coming. He puts in the assist. He's a guy that obviously, look, between how bad the field was and when he came onto the game, I was a little bit nervous for him that he was gonna aggravate something, right? He's had, various, injuries this year. So you got to take into consideration that he was probably easing into that game, and he just got those minutes to get competitive minutes. But I don't think that is a real example of what he's providing. I heard, he looks so stiff. He looks so tired. I don't think it's that. I think that he was being cautious going into the game. But he's a guy that, to me, is going to really make this offense that much better. I'm not saying that the Musovski magic is gone. He certainly is a great poacher. I feel like although Osase had a bad game, I mean, it was more of a lack of service and maybe a couple of moments where he just didn't get the ball right. Or the one chance he had, I don't know if Paul might have been offsides anyways.
Not
Paul. Georgie might have been offsides. But having Jordan to me just makes me feel so much better about someone getting to certain balls, someone beating the defense to the back. You know, there's so many things that Jordan does that I feel like he could be this team's unsung hero for the last five games of the season.
It's silly almost to keep talking about how productive Jordan has been when he's been able to be on the field, but he has played something like 448 MLS minutes this season and has 4 goals and 1 assist, which is effectively a goal contribution every 90 minutes, slightly better than that. But yeah, he wasn't sprinting the entire half hour he was on the field against Miami, but he was making good runs. He looked strong. He looked fast. He looked explosive. It is such, I think, similarly to De La Vega, even if he's coming off of the bench, such a rarity to be able to bring someone on who is not just a really good player, but a genuine upgrade over whoever is starting ahead of them until they're able to start themselves. Like, that is such a step up in quality that opponents have to deal with that I don't think Jordan, his skill set does not lend to taking over a game necessarily in the way that I think Pedro is capable of, but a player who forces other teams to defend and play so differently from what anyone else offers just completely opens games up.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about the competition for minutes that we are. I think this is a good transition to the competition for minutes. That's Jordan, that's Danny, that's all, I mean, really all over the field. And I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to see how Brian ends up balancing that.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart podcast network, which now includes No Sarietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible through our paid subscribers. Plans start as low as $30 a year and allow us to remain independent and mostly ad-free. Subscribers get access to all our written and podcast content, including a full-text RSS feed and a mostly ad-free podcast feed that includes every show in one spot. If you really like what we're doing, though, I'd encourage you to sign up at our higher tiers, which include all sorts of various perks. The most popular of those is our members-only Discord, where the real Sounders sickos hang out. I know I've called this group the smartest, funniest, and best-informed Sounders fans in the world, but it's more than the rough equivalent of a Sounders Mensa meeting. Discord is where we make things happen, like for real. You know the promotion the Sounders ran that offered fans the opportunity to trade in their Messi jersey for a Paul Rothrock one? That originated in our community. You'll not only be the first to know about stuff, but you also have a semi-direct line to the movers and shakers at the Sounders organization. If you want to be one of the totally normal people who occupy the Sounder at Heart Discord, just become a supporter of Sounder at Heart. Anyway, thanks for listening and go Durs. No Sarietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code Sounder at Heart, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code Sounder at Heart at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
All right, we're back, and let's get into the lineup decisions that are facing Brian this week. I think maybe this, or I shouldn't say the lineup decisions this week, but the lineup decisions that are going to be going on, I think this week might be a little straightforward because Pedro hasn't played for 3 weeks, so he might not start right away. Jordan Morris clearly still working his way in. But Albert Rusnák looked like he is going to be starting again. It looked to me like they are sort of going back to that hybrid 4-2-3-1, 3-4-2-1, depending on, in possession, out of possession kind of thing. But it's one of the big decisions that they're eventually going to have to figure out is how they keep Danny Musovski still, this is one of the hottest strikers in the league still. They've got Osaze de Rosario, who is coming off a great Leagues Cup. Clearly he's down the totem pole when it comes to actual playing time, but they're probably going to want to find stuff for him. But then it gets really interesting once you get outside of that, because you've got Jesus Ferreira, Paul Rothrock, Pedro de la Vega, Albert Rusnák, all playing like starters who can't all start.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, as much as I love and I have been a huge Paul Rothrock guy, he's probably the guy that is more built to come in off the bench and just immediately impact the game, create havoc. He has so many ways to influence the game that are far beyond just what he'll do on the ball. He is a guy that, although I have learned to respect and appreciate his savviness and his actual technical abilities, I still think that his heavy motor is his biggest attribute. So he has an ability that maybe Pedro doesn't have to just come into a game and just get it going. He turns the switch on and he's on, baby. Pedro needs time to get into a game, to settle in, to read the game, to find his feet. Obviously his upside is great, but he needs to start. So that part is where I feel like Brian is gonna lean to, and he might seem like an easy decision, but maybe not so much so, because we're just talking about injuries. We're talking about the way that this team has played with a certain amount of players. So yeah, I feel like that's one that we're all going to be watching for.
Yeah, I think to both of your point, Paul Rothrock is probably, if everyone is fit and available, Paul is probably the guy who misses out on a starting spot in that scenario. We have seen when Pedro is healthy and good to go, he is a starter for Schmetzer. Like, he figured out if you play him in his best position and give him the room to run, he is going to run all over opponents, and he'll do it on both sides of the field. Like, his contributions against Miami were huge. He was an absolute nightmare, both with when the Sounders were in possession and when they were without the ball. Like, he just plays so hard. The question is, how available is he going to be? I think the benefit is, one, the ability to chop and change the team depending on the opponent, what the other team is giving you in a game. And I think we probably do see more of a platoon approach throughout that front four of guys starting and they go 60 and the other guy comes on and plays 30. And then if, it's a 2-game week, they swap and the other guy starts the next game. But what I hope we see is that as guys get fit and spots, not just in the 11, but in that game day roster, are up for grabs, that competition does continue to spur players on to better and better performances. That, as Jordan said, maybe they needed a game like the Miami one to sort of wake them up, that just adds to that competition and the drive, and that they are able to get rolling as the end of the season approaches.
And I don't think we're going to see this as a starting position, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if we do see all five of them with Jordan all on the field together. It seems to me it's much more likely to be sort of a late game situation. To get them all on the field, you'd basically have to be playing like a a 3-2-4-1, which on top of things, it means pulling off an Alex Roldan or you're essentially playing without a right back or a left back, and you're playing just with 3 center backs. I don't know that you're going to really see that to start. But I wouldn't be at all surprised to see if we see late game situations where it's, Jackson, Yamar, and Alex or something along the back line. Again, I don't think that's not probably a starting formation.
But if you're chasing and need a goal in a playoff game or something, certainly overwhelming force.
Yeah. The other thing that's going to be interesting this week is this is the last week that Obed and Reed Baker Whiting are going to be here. They're going to miss 2 huge games at least. They're going to miss the Portland game and they're going to miss the Vancouver Whitecaps game. Both are which kind of must-win games, if we're being honest. And and then they could potentially miss the rest of the season, actually, after Austin, depending on how far they advance in the U20 World Cup. That's another thing we learned this week, is that both Reed and Obed are going to the U20 World Cup. It sounds like there were some internal discussions about whether or not they were going to accept those invitations. They've both obviously accepted it. Hard to second guess their decisions from a personal standpoint. Hard to second guess the Sounders ultimately agreeing that they can go. But especially for Obed, this is he's going to start.
It's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. And how the Sounders handle his absence, because they have not had to play very many games without Obed or Christian, for that matter, on the field.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, because I kind of figured that, it was probably the worst kept secret was that Obed was going to go to play with the U20s. Right. And that's why I kind of had that Vancouver game as a loss on my book. Kubas and Berhalter are a hell of a pairing at midfield. That team, the way they move, now with Mueller and this, I don't know, almost excitement that he's got this team playing with is different. I think that's one of those games where you're going to really miss a guy like Obed. I'm hoping that I like what I see out of Schneider Burnell. I really do. Yeah. I feel like he clearly doesn't have maybe that explosiveness on the ball, and maybe he's clearly a young player that's still trying to find his way, but he finds himself in the right positions. He had that one bad turnover against Miami, but other than that, I thought he was a positive.
I thought he gave him he injected some energy into the game.
He did. And even when he might not be the fastest guy out there, he's so smart on the ball that he can cut angles with the best of them. He got a couple of intercepting balls that I thought were great. His anticipation is very good. So we'll see how that works out. But the Obed Vargas is clearly the one player that you're really going to miss it in those 2 games. Not anything against Reed, but obviously he's been more of a rotating piece rather than a feature, because that's what Obed is. And both pivots, for this offense to work, the pivots need to work.
Yeah, it's tough to look past the impact that Obed has. It's so commonplace at this point that he just is one of the best midfielders in the league and is written in ink as the starter next to Christian Roldan, who has a fair case as the best central mid in MLS this season. I really like Snyder. I think he reads the game really well. He reads space incredibly well. If you watch Tacoma Defiance in his absence, you can see the gap that is left in their midfield by him moving to the first team. But those are, a Timbers game is always a tough environment. That's not an easy thing to step into as a teenager with, only a handful of appearances with the first team. Vancouver, to your point, that's one of the best teams in the West, and they were that before adding Thomas Mueller. That's going to be a tough game to navigate your way through. I do wonder if we see Joao Paulo rather than Snyder in
I wouldn't
games.
Be shocked by that. Yeah.
But it's going to be much tougher games without Obed Vargas available.
Yeah, for me is how fit is JP? That's the one thing. Is he fit for for 60. He's definitely not ready for 90, in my opinion.
I can't imagine.
Looking from the outside, right?
I mean, when was the last time he played?
Oh, I mean, you'd have to go back to like February or something like that. I mean,
I don't think it was February, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been like for him to play. Oh, like just right now, you know,
Just
90.
Like, no, I just mean.
Yeah, play right before his injury.
But you're right. It might have been 90 minutes since he probably played 90 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like 90. I feel like the last time I might have seen that would have been in Antigua or something like that.
His last appearance was the previous Austin game.
Oh, wow.
June 28th.
Oh,
that was the last appearance of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I feel like that's a guy that he
played 4 minutes.
He played 4 minutes. Great. Yeah. So that's my concern because he's clearly back on. He was playing as a neutral today. I see him without any real issues. You know, I always look at his vertical movement and his horizontal movement. Those hips can always tell where he's at. He looks good there, but it's different to just play a short-sided game than it is obviously on a competitive game. So
yeah, he hasn't started since May 14th.
May. Oh, see, I was close.
It was not.
I was close.
Yeah, that was not. We were not that far off. But yeah, so 90 minutes is probably not in the cards for him, which is fine. They shouldn't need 90 minutes from JP. I would think that Snyder is capable of playing some of the. It'll be interesting how Danny Leyva looks so comfortable playing as a 10.
Yes,
but can't be any better than third on the depth chart at the 10 now with both Jesus Ferreira and Albert Rusnák. So does he going to get some minutes maybe in that double pivot? He hasn't done it. It's kind of a bummer because players like Danny Leyva haven't done anything to warrant a lack of playing. I think Danny Leyva was basically a player. Wasn't he like player of the game the last time that he started?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that he was for the Santos game.
Yeah, that was the last time he started, right?
Yeah, I think that was his last start out. Maybe there was one other one.
But he's been, so that's going to be fascinating. And I should also say before we get out of here, we asked Brian about the goalkeeper situation.
And that's the big one.
And that is probably the biggest one. I basically threw it to him as, well, if you played Steph on short rest, this must mean he's your number one. And he said, he's my number one for now.
Mm-hmm.
And, tried to, and I think there was some real, he could have, if he wanted to, said, he's our number one. He's going to be our number one going forward. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. That was not the answer he gave.
He explicitly said there is competition, which is more definitive to that angle of the conversation than he has been previously.
I mean, exactly.
For me, I see it another way. I think that he's already made up his mind, and I think that he's adding that competition thing just so Steph is going to stay sharp and he's going to keep that there, as in that the competition is still there. But on Tuesday, I said, look, if Andrew starts, there's competition and he's trying to figure out what's what. But if Steph starts, he's going to go with Steph. I thought Steph, obviously, we've talked about this. The second goal, maybe a little bit of lack of mobility there, perhaps. But the other two, a header that close at just blank range, I don't care who you are. It's hard to get your hands up. And I know it looks bad, probably more so because your mind is embedded on the age and on the fact that he should not be in there. And so you go to that, but that's a hard shot no matter what. The couple of big saves that he had, those are savvy, experienced saves, right? He had one on Agenda. He gets in on the 18, crosses it, hits it well, has one on a Frei header, has the other one that's a big one, is the big foot save that he got on Messi. So there was a lot of good things, but I understand why that's there. However, I feel like Brian is going to go with Steph until Steph gives him a reason to pull him off. That's just my opinion.
I don't know. I sensed more doubt in his answer because after the game, when we asked him about it, he was pretty not defensive. He was Yeah, I mean, he was more willing to defend Frei's performance. And then today, I wouldn't say he walked back the defense of Frei's performance, but he just made it very clear that, like, I don't think he needs to motivate Steph Frei. Steph Frei is going to be motivated. I think he's purposely leaving his options open. That's, I guess, what I see.
I think Andrew Thomas has made his case. He has shown that if he starts in goal, you are going to get good performances. That is a player capable of being the number one goalkeeper for the Seattle Sounders. I think the point that Schmetzer maybe is leaving it where the competition is essentially you have a guy who's ready to step in,
right?
Prove that guy doesn't need to step in. And it is maybe not totally dissimilar from the way he approached it with Raul Ruidiaz or Nico Lodero, where you are capable of performing as a guy who deserves to start. You have earned the respect and the opportunity to maintain your starting spot through everything you've contributed up to this point, but you need to earn it. And he's not going to make the decision based on one game or two games, but he is going to give him enough road to prove definitively one way or the other whether he should continue to start or he is going to step aside. I don't think it's an easy decision by any means, but I heard more genuine sentiment in the competition remark. But we'll see how it plays out.
But that's what I'm saying. Steph's his guy. Steph proves that he cannot perform at that level. And what I meant to ask him that we just couldn't because unfairly, he was very on 9 minutes today. He should have given us 30 minutes because we waited for him beyond that. But we're going to let it go. But what I wanted to ask him is, it's on like Niko or Raul, because the goalkeeping position, you're kind of depending on the rest of the team, right?
Yeah.
Because soccer is circumstantial and it's not linear. I say that all the time because that's the way it is. How unfair is it that Andrew played Inter Miami when the team was lights out, when they were chasing Messi the whole game, where they were playing at a different level, and then Steph gets to play when people are looking tired, is looking like nobody is got the intensity.
Yeah.
Christian Roldan's having the worst game of his life. Yamar, it's trying to jump on the ball on a free kick and passes it to an open attacker. I mean, there's so many things that if you look at it, it has to be beyond conceding goals. So that's what I wanted to ask him. What is it that you're looking for in terms to make that decision?
And I think the concerns or frustration or questions around Frei's mobility, his ability to react and respond in moments is not a new issue.
No,
that's
it's not.
Been the case. And he does have in moments in games, plays where like maybe occasionally he makes a save that you don't 100% know that Andrew Thomas makes that save, but you also don't 100% know that Stefan Frei is going to make that save each time.
That's true.
And you end up with numerous opportunities where, Frei makes good saves in that Miami game, but there are also several other opportunities that Miami had that they didn't finish, that if it's Andrew Thomas is probably physically capable of closing an angle or beating a player to a ball. He's quicker to react because he knows that he physically is able to accomplish the thing and there's not any perceived hesitation. There's also just the concerns of how much does the collision that led to his head injury linger. I think especially for goalkeeper, like for any player following an injury, there is always that hesitancy that you have to overcome of like, oh, if I go into this challenge, am I going to get another knee injury, whatever. Goalkeepers especially are, they are the madmen in the team. They do things that no other player would ever conceivably attempt. that added layer of, the last time I did this, I got kneed in the head and then was out for however long. I don't know how much that is contributing, but I do think there is a mounting body of evidence that Andrew Thomas might just give you a better chance of winning games.
And maybe you got to see that on the field, because my rebuttal would be is that the more athletic goalkeeper, in that Messi save that Steph made at the end, Messi's expecting the goalkeeper to come at him quicker, right? And if he does that, he's going to chip it over or he's going to make it easier. I think what Steph does well is that he stands his ground and he makes himself big. Part of it is probably because he knows he's not going to beat Messi to the ball, or he's not going to close the angle quick enough. And so it kind of works to his point. But I mean, I get what you're saying, because we've seen the best out of Thomas when it comes to shot stopping. That is his thing, right? But I still don't think it's definitive. Now, I understand that the evidence is there when it comes to the mobility component, because that's something that's a reality. It's not like we're making that up. But in the distribution also, if you look at that, the opportunity in the LA game that Musovski misses, that comes off of a great ball from Steph into Paul. Paul heads that ball through the defensive line, and then Musovski has all the real estate to go and miss that shot. And there was a couple of times in his Miami game where I also thought that he was on point on his feet, because he does have that over on
I think Steph's still the better distributor, even though what's frustrating is that the equalizing goal against the Galaxy also comes off of him. Kicks it out of bounds. And I think that's sort of where, like, it's that stuff. I think that's the stuff that's ultimately going to be on Brian's mind. It's like, look, we know where Thomas's advantages are. We think we know where Steph's advantages are. But if those advantages start to diminish, I don't know. I think it's not going away, I guess, is what the whole point of bringing it up is that, we're 2 more games into this. There's 5 games left. I don't know how much longer it can hang out there before it. So, like, I guarantee the last thing that Brian wants to do is go into the last 2 games of the season not 100% sure who is starting goalkeeper is.
Totally agree. And I mean, to you guys' points, that balance of pros and cons, is starting to lean towards Andrew's way, right? So can he perform? My gut feeling is that Steph will start again.
I think
against Austin, and then that'll be the deciding.
It might be. I mean, if Steph plays great against Austin, or if the Sounders win that game 2-0, whatever, probably going to be the starter of the rest of the year. If they don't win that game,
yes,
I think we are very much back in the, or I shouldn't say if they don't win. If there's a more than a crack of doubt,
that the performance,
that's where it's going to get real serious. I think, because Portland, Vancouver, RSL, New York City, those are all tough games. They are all effectively playoff games. It's where the rubber is going to hit the road.
One way or another, I would like for there definitively to not be a goalkeeper controversy.
I would like that too.
Because I do feel like we repeatedly are like, there's not really a goalkeeper controversy. And then there continues to be a goalkeeper controversy, whether we like it or not.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's probably a good place to end it. Thank you guys. Nico Moreno. You can, of course, find him on Pulso Sports. You can find him on El Rolo NW on the various socials. And, of course, you can find him on Lobbing Scorchers, as well as our little podcast here. And then Tim Foss is doing more and more in-person reporting out here at Long Acres. I want to say thank you, Tim. You've been doing a great job holding it down, and we're going to continue to get more of this.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, all
Happy
right,
to be
Tim.
here.
Yeah.
Just don't try to find me on social media.
Exactly. We didn't even talk about Craig today, but there wasn't much to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we had to just kind of put it in a nutshell, he gave pretty easy statements that you would probably find in a press release.
I mean, he seemed to have somewhere to be and wasn't about to delay himself.
He was here, and that's about as much as
I think the biggest thing that he said today for everyone was the fact that he feels like there's two strong offers
on the table
for Paul Rothrock and Obed Vargas
meaning to stay here,
because obviously both of those guys are looking for extensions. We asked Obed; he seems to be very confident that things will go great. But in terms of what we heard from Craig, there was nothing really there. Even you asked about potential, about him going to somewhere else.
Well, because there's always been interest in Reed going elsewhere, and we sort of just asked sort of almost a softball about what, and maybe he misunderstood the question. Maybe I didn't phrase it right, but he's just completely shut it down like that was someone else. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, but Craig, aside from that, there was really nothing going on there. We'll see where this team leads off. I also asked him about potential turnover for next year, and he didn't.
I don't know
if he really answered it at the very end of it.
It was
so if you see that presser and you kind of see that maybe we didn't add more questions, it's because we kind of got where it was going. It was probably not the presser we were going to get a lot. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, with all that said, I am Jeremiah Shan signing off for Nos Audietes, which is part of the Sounder Heart Podcast Network. We will catch you next time.
Let's go Sounders.
Lowe's knows how to help make your home holiday ready for less. Get Select Style Selections vinyl flooring for just $1.99 per square foot and have it installed before the festivities begin. Our team can help you every step of the way. See a Lowe's Red Vest associate or visit Lowe's.com/holiday install to get started. Lowe's, we help, you save. Basic install only. Date restrictions apply. Subject to availability. Installed by independent contractors. See associate for details. Contiguous U.S. only.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains September 19th through the 24th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.